You definitely have to be on your toes, especially in the type of flying that we're doing, right? Because a lot of the students are coming from, a very scripted environment, right? We're going to go out and do stalls and falls. We're going to do some aerobatics. We're going to do some landings, some approaches. Your aperture, your essay bubble, your view of the world as a young pilot is Paquito. And you don't know how small it is until way late in your career. So it's kind of like you just realize there's a lot that you don't know. And around the time that you start getting comfortable, realize that there's an even more, you get a larger space of what you don't know. So kind of like
a lot of people always wonder, like, fighter pilot, we're watching these movies and like you guys are pulling all these G's and doing all these maneuvers, and it's like, how exciting is that, or how do you keep that from feeling very normal? Because you do it 2 to 3 times a day, 3, 4, 5 times a week.
I would argue.
All right, we got Air and Ben. We got Air and Omni. I'm gonna say it.
I thought we were using the right. I made up make believe. Yeah. You don't get to use your call sign today, brother.
All right, so we got two.
Benjamin,
right?
Government is your name.
We got 2 F-15 fighter pilots who are also instructor fighter pilots. So they train people how to become fighter pilots in the Air Force. Jones,
What's up?
oh, quick your truck.
Oh, all right. Let's see. Air Jones. I've been flying for almost 19 years now, almost 20 years. I started out as a T6 Fate out in Texas, and then got selected to go fly the Strike Eagle, the mighty Strike Eagle, twin tail, twin seat, twin engine, fire breather Mac Air Warhorse.
There we go.
Yep, did that for 6 years, and then I was selected to go fly the light attack mission, advised in that regard. And then pulled over to the Intro to Fighter Fundamentals as a squadron commander. I've been doing that, or just finished that 2-year assignment. So graduated squadron commander in that regard, yeah.
Man, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, that's a lot. And what seems like you tell in such a short period of time, but that's a lot of time and a lot of experience.
Yes, definitely. I've seen I've seen a few things. Sure. Right, yes.
All good. Omni.
I'm Omni Ivor. F-15C fighter pilot by trade, the light gray, the sleek, lean version of the Strike Eagle. I've been in the Air Force coming up on 15 years, just short of 15 years now. I started my career as a F-16 crew chief. I did that for about 7.5 years, and then I was lucky enough to get picked up to be a pilot. So grew up around aviation, always kind of wanted to fly, but the glasses kind of prevented me in the beginning, but kind of took the long road to get there. So same time, I guess it's the part of my career in the beginning. I'm launching out dudes like him, and then now I'm on the other side doing that. So pod training, flew F-15Cs, and then out back at in the pod training environment, training the next generation of fighter pilots.
Next generation of fighter pilots. So what's it like training people to be fighter pilots? It's a real generic question, but like, you guys aren't just training people to fly Cessnas or learn the basics of flying, or even just becoming pilots in the Air Force. You're taking folks who have graduated as pilots and have their wings, and now are getting ready to transition to fly with F-15s, F-22s, F-35s once they're done with you guys, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So once they go through our program, we'll get to our program. IFF is essentially a screener for the follow-on training in their MWS, right? So we're taking freshly graduated, newly minted students or winged aviators out of in the United States Air Force and give them the basics and putting them through a screening course on what it's like, what it takes to be a fighter pilot. And so we're essentially developing fighter wingmen, right? And that's kind of what we our mantra. Like everything, it depends, right? But every day is different. Every student is different. But that's the basic genesis of what we do, is develop fighter wingmen.
So give me an idea of like what the day is when you're taking someone and you're getting ready to go. What are you learning? Like, what are you teaching guys in one of your training centers?
Well, I was going to say, at least from my standpoint, maybe at my level, I'm like, I think it's just fun, right? You're teaching somebody something new, but it's not the standard of how to do takeoff and landings, how to shoot approaches, right? Like, that's nice. they know how to fly the plane. They don't know how to employ the plane, which is a totally different art and style of flying. And I think at this level too, like the day in the life, you are briefing, debriefing, all this stuff in a way, in a flavor that they have never seen before. So I think that's why I'm saying, like, you never know what you're going to get. And it's not of the like, hey man, student is really bad at takeoff and landings. What they're good and not good at varies so much from student to student, day to day, that I would say sometimes it keeps you on your toes probably more often than you think.
You definitely have to be on your toes, especially in the type of flying that we're doing, right? Because a lot of the students are coming from, a very scripted environment, right? We're going to go out and do stalls and falls. We're going to do some aerobatics. We're going to do some landings, some approaches, some formation where they really don't get closer than 9,000 feet or a mile and a half, maybe up to 6,000 feet at the most. And now we're going to take them and transition them to an environment, like you said, where we're going to max perform the aircraft, right? Fall on the near, stall limit of the profile. Putting planes as close together as 1,000 feet in a dynamic environment where they're not just that close, but they're maneuvering based off what the other aircraft is doing. And conversely, the aircraft is maneuvering based off what they're doing. So it's something they haven't seen up to this point, and you don't know what you're going to get because the skill levels vary just like everywhere else, right? So some internalize it a lot sooner. Some take a few repetitions to get there. We talked about the other day, it's flying is nothing but repetition. Yeah. Flying tactically is a lot the same way, right? Being able to internalize and habituate what it is that you're going to do so that you can react and respond appropriately. There's been some exciting moments. There's some dull moments. You get students that are apprehensive initially, and then you get some students that fangs are out, the leash is off, and they're ready to get in and learn how to kill, but they don't know what they don't know yet. So,
yeah. So something that a lot of people can relate to or kind of bring together is a lot of people saw Top Gun, right? The new Top Gun movie, right? And we know it's TV, we know it's a movie. But when I think about like a fighter pilot instructor, I think, is that what you guys are doing? Like what Tom Cruise is doing in the movie, like teaching people how to fly through valleys and then drop bombs on target?
I was going to say kind of, because I feel like in that movie he he's just beating up on the students, like he's making it look easy. And I would say there's definitely portions where we as instructors, like, yeah, it's kind of like that. I don't, at least from the old one, there's no Maverick, there's no Iceman, there's no Jester. The students don't show up like, there's some that are better than others, but they don't show up anywhere near that kind of level.
Efficiency. Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things. Even the top students at a pilot training, they might be great from, call it the admin phases that coming and going, but from fights on to knock it off or terminate, like that's where they're no different, right? They might be really strong in the other areas, and they might just be really terrible there. But conversely, what I will say, I guess Top Gun, if you're great, you've got great hands, you're great at dogfighting BFM, but the admin coming and going, you're not good at, you won't make it as a fighter pilot.
I mean, you said something the other day too. There was, as far as if you want to be able to be the guy that shoots and kills the next MiG,
employ the mission.
You got to say
the admin. You got to do all the admin to get there. You got to get on the tanker and get gas. You got to be in the formation position. There's all these things that lead up. Even then, if you crash the jet on the way home, right, that's still a win for the enemy, right? So you still got to shoot the ILS down the mins right after you had a 6-hour, sortie, getting shot at, so on and so forth. But you still got to do the simple, basic shooting approach at the end of it, right? So what I was telling him, my 3 keys to success to be a fighter pilot, do you know what they are in IFF?
What are they?
Admin, and admin, right? We can teach you a dogfight and basic surgery. We can teach you that, right? But like the admin stuff, I don't teach you that, right? You learn that in pilot training. Those are the things that need to be sharp. And at the end of the day, to be successful, to go put bombs down range, I'm like, the admins would get you there. So,
and to that point, the admin phase is critical. Like being able to return from the mission, from putting warheads on foreheads, kind of a deal. An environment in the wars that we've been fighting up to this point, the tactical phase isn't what's killing people. It's the admin phase coming home where folks are shooting ILSs and finding themselves in precarious situations that they can't recover out of, right? So being you stay fenced in until the debrief is over, right? The sortie's not over until we're walking away, about to go get some chow or some rest, right? So the admin phase is really the critical part in any aspect of flying, right? But specifically tactical aviation, because you can't get to the tactical piece without the admin piece, and conversely, you can't return from that. As far as the Top Gun parallel, there's a lot of parallels. I think the overarching parallel from Top Gun though is, yeah, do we strap a jet on and go execute an artificial scenario or develop scenario based off real world training? Yeah, absolutely. But there's some cinematography, so Hollywood is involved with that. But at the end of the day, that's what we're doing, right? We're going out there, we're training, we're LARPing at its finest, putting Tron bombs out and
Pinnacle.
Yeah.
Pinnacle of LARPing. Nobody does it better than fight.
So going in and pretending to go do stuff. So,
but it's the repetition, right? So we know what the scenario looks like, and just like they did over and over and over and over until he was able to perfect it. That is what we're doing. That is what they're going to do when they get to MQT or their formal training unit and their follow-on mission fall training and operational execution, right? So.
And I think like a lot of people always wonder, like when fighter pilots, we're watching these movies and like you guys are pulling all these G's and doing all these maneuvers, and it's like, how exciting is that, or how do you keep that from feeling very normal? Because you do it 2 to 3 times a day, 3, 4, 5 times a week.
I would argue I want it to feel normal. When I don't fly for a month, that's when it doesn't feel normal. And but yeah, I feel like the one thing with Top Gun is I'm like, is that what my face looks like? You don't ever look at your face like when you're doing stuff.
The mask down, the visor up, but I don't know, I wear it on my face, as I get older, right?
Oh yeah.
But I would argue that it does feel normal, right? My brother always jokes, he's like, roller coasters probably don't feel nothing like, for you. I was like, nah. You get on a roller coaster, you get off, you're like, oh, what was that?
Why did I waste that time?
Yeah. So you're looking for that next thrill when it comes to walking around, being, 1G, 0 knots, if you will, to kind of experience that. But to that point, it is something that I try not to take for granted because I recognize the opportunities that I have. 99% of the world will never get to experience that, whether you wanted to or didn't want to or whatever the case may be. Point in case, we were deployed and we took off for a mission. And the weather precluded us from being able to execute what we wanted to do. And we land, and the security forces airman that was guarding our facilities, we'd come to know each other, share some stories every now and then. And he said, did you get to fly? And I was like, yeah, we flew. It wasn't all that exciting. He was like, we had to do the weather thing. We got airborne. The weather was there. We had to come back. And he goes, but you flew? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, and you got to go fast? I was like, it's a Strike Eagle. We were going fast, relatively speaking. And he goes, but I had to sit here and guard your shack. And he's like, I don't want to hear it. I was like, point taken. You're right. The perspective is there, right? Like I get to do things that I've always wanted to do. I'm living my dream. And, there's folks that don't get the opportunity. They would just love to get airborne and take a trip around the pattern just to see the airport from a different point of view. And so it is normalized to that point where you don't think about how what we do is, exceptional in a lot of ways. I hate to toot that horn, but it is kind of different. And I say that and say this is different, and it's an experience that a lot of people don't get to take.
Yeah.
But you do normalize it. You do get used to it. You do come to expect the G's and the speed and the like. So
most people don't know. Most people don't even know pilots, and even less people know fighter pilots.
Right.
And so it is so abnormal what you do.
Well, even to that point, I think there's that love-hate of, especially in a typical fighter sortie, even a training one like we do, the amount of time that you have for a pinch myself moment or just take a moment is 40, not even 49.
Yeah, right. Hang on.
And so I remember my very first solo in the Eagle. Granted, this is I think it's like your third ride. So your solo v solo instructors in the other jet were RTB, and I would argue that's probably your blood pressure's coming down from doing something exciting in the airspace.
So RTP going back to base.
Yep, and he comes on the radio. He's like, just take a moment and just turn around, and look behind you, right? And you look, and the Eagle obviously is a massive airplane, flying tennis court, right? And you're like, and he's like, dude, you're strapped to this thing. And to me, like I said, obviously that moment still lives with me. And this is many years ago of like. Yeah, that is it, right? And I would say that probably in my time flying the Eagle, there was a few times, and maybe towards the end of your assignment, that you're just going to try to savor certain moments, but you maybe get a few moments, right, where you get to go, this is not normal.
Right.
We know that, right? But I think just the nature of the business, you kind of you get those moments, but those moments, like I said, you got to, especially I would say probably in certain deployed environments or certain types of missions, those moments come after you land, and and you're about to go to sleep. But like, oh, we just did that, right? But you don't get that in the moment as much. Yeah. But
I agree,
especially in the deployed environment, right? Because you're always thinking about deployment environment for sure. Because you're always thinking about what's about to try to kill you, right? But even flying in general, like, you can't take the time to really live in the moment because you always got to be thinking about, you got to be 2 steps, 3 steps ahead of the plane in a lot of ways. Even just flying instruments, right? What are they about to give me to do, or what are they going to tell me to do? Where am I turning to next?
Yeah.
And so, sometimes it's tough to do, but when you're traveling across country in some ways and you got, a 3 ship, you're a 4 ship and you look over and you got 3 other jets with you, like, it's, something to take in right there. It's a good moment. So.
That's why I say, at least from the single seat mindset, obviously at times it's fantastic having a Wizzo, but if you're single seat by yourself, like, nobody's backing you up at any point in time, especially in the admin phases after a long flight, right? To me, that's like, if I catch myself starting to wander, whether it's taking in the moment or thinking about something else, like, that gotta straighten up, right? I don't have, you've got flight leads and wingmans and other stuff, but like I said, at the end of the day, nobody's going, hey man, you're 2 degrees off there, right? Or like, most people don't know this, but like 35 is probably different. We don't really have autopilots, right? Mm-hmm. So we have some rudimentary attitude hold type stuff, but they're generally kind of terrible, right? They will lean and all this stuff. But the point being is, that you fly an 8-hour mission, like, you just generally hand flew for about 8 hours, right? That is tasking. So from that single seat mindset of like, that's where like we try to stay focused, stay fenced in, if you will, to make sure that you, I guess, not slip, right? Admin's the important part. But
man, that's awesome. So flying these big fighter jets fast, teach people to do all this. When you guys started off flying, taking it all the way back, if you were to go back and give yourself any advice when you were just learning how to fly, what would that be? What are some things that you think that are important things that you would have known, or that you can pass to other people that when it comes to just getting into flying, or just the beginning part of it?
It's a good question. Obviously being where I'm at now, I've done some things that have obviously been beneficial to get and have the longevity that I've been able to experience. Staying engaged is always my go-to, though, right? Take care of what you control on the ground, right? 1G, 0 knots. Things happen differently than airborne, moving at the speed of snot, and you actually have to think about things, and you don't really have time to think about everything. Some of it has to be instinctive. You got to be proactive. You can't be reactive in a lot of ways. So taking care of your general knowledge and your emergency procedures, the things that you can study and prepare for on the ground, your threat reactions, if you're talking about tactics rather, just being so engaged with that you hear it, you see it, you know what to do, versus having to think about, what am I looking at? What is this telling me? What does the -1 say? Or what does the checklist say? Like, you see it, oh, I got to do this, this, and this, and you execute, versus spending the brain bites and the time it takes to think about it and then react. So that's probably mine. Just stay engaged, stay focused, stay motivated, try to minimize the distraction of the world.
Yeah, and that's huge. I mean, you're talking, when folks are just getting started, I know with new students, they get so caught off guard and distracted with things, like, just get engaged, stay right in that lane and knock it out. That's good. What you got?
Yeah, I would say that, like, knowing what I know about flying, it like almost has nothing to do with your hands. You have to, and I feel like, especially when you first start flying, you feel like, well, I'm not good at flying the plane. And just like everything else, reps, dude, it'll come. Your hands will come. But really what you're working on, and is like your decision-making and the foundation of which you do things. Inevitably, especially if you want to have a career as a fighter pilot or airline pilot, like, when you fly bigger and faster jets, the decision-making time shrinks, right?
That's facts.
And generally speaking, your subconscious is way faster than your conscious memory, right? So the foundation of knowing your EPs and general knowledge, systems knowledge. So when something happens, it's just a reaction. Something happens, you react to it and fix it, as opposed to something happens, oh man, what do I do here? Oh, well, so there's a lot of things that the more you can get into your subconscious, the study habits, the discipline, that will help you get further, right? It's almost like a smarter, not harder. I think if I had to describe myself as a young pilot, is like, I was trying to be an athlete. I'm like, I was trying to call it my talent to cover up the things that I was not good at. And to the point of, like, some of your study habits, your discipline, if you just work a little bit more efficiently, it allows you time to make better decisions, and therefore you just kind of become a better pilot. You weren't given any extra talents over time. And then the other thing too, I'd say your aperture, your essay bubble, your view of the world as a young pilot is Paquito. And you don't know how small it is until way later in your career. So it's kind of like, you just realize there's a lot that you don't know. And around the time that you start getting comfortable, realize that there's an even larger space of what you don't know. So kind of like staying in the book, staying engaged, of like, you will start to look back and go, oh man, I didn't know. I got myself into some precarious situations just based off things I didn't know. So just realize you won't know a lot in the beginning, but as you start to grow, you'll learn more. But that even 19 years later, I'm sure your bucket is still putting.
You said you led to it, is that you don't have enough time to make all the mistakes. So part of that is, honing in on past mistakes that have, the other people have gotten out of me, being engaged with some of the other stories, right, and learning from those. But I'm always learning. I like to consider myself a student of life anyways, right? We talk about mentorship. I'm mentor up, mentor down. I've got mentors that come from, above me. I've got mentors that come from below me, if you will, from an age perspective, just because, the generational gaps are with society are just different, right? So if I don't know what they're thinking at such a young age, like how can I engage? How can I interact with them? But I learn things from some of my young pilots all the time, every single day. I'm learning something new. So some of the old heads too, right? Because we come from different platforms in the squadron that we're in, with just a myriad of different folks, and just such diverse backgrounds from flying, like the way they do things in the light attack or the attack environment is different than the way we do things in the multi-role environment versus air to air. So we all have different unique skill sets that we kind of bring together, and the information sharing can be much. The bantering could be much. But it's all in good spirit, it's good fun, and at the end of the day, we're just trying to make each other better to secure, to do what we do.
Man, that's great. I guess last thing I'll ask you guys: do you guys have any memorable stories about a flight or an event that happened that they think was either helpful or something that just sticks with you?
I've got stories for days.
Right, I'm like, there's so many stories.
Yeah, some of my favorite memories are, doing mock runs over the Nevada desert for red flags, overseas in the training environment. Because not every sortie that we flew overseas was combat, right? So we did some training, and some of those developmental sorties were fun. Flying with the Navy can be a hoot. Let's see. Shooting rockets for the first time was probably one of my favorite memories.
What was that like?
That was because we don't do that in the Strike Eagle, right? So going out to the light attack environment, we incorporated the rockets, and so shooting rockets, after having flown in the Strike Eagle for 7 years, was just a different experience. Like being that close to the pod and just seeing them rip off 14 rockets. It's an experience for sure. Shooting a 50 cal. Weapons deployment, I think, are probably the things that come back to me the most. Just being able to engage and employ your weapons from different profiles. So
I was going to say that if you think of the life of a fighter pilot, and even for many fighter pilots that have come and gone, we just talked about we're like the world's greatest LARPer. Imagine a soldier who has never fired his gun, right?
Yeah.
That is not technically uncommon in the fighter pilot world, right? So even for me, I think memorable is like getting to shoot an AMRAAM, doing a missile shoot. Like we do all this practicing, and if you think about the life, like there's fighter pilots, especially the air-to-air guys, right? We're not doing much air-to-air, but maybe balloons here and there, but we're not doing much by air-to-air, right? The air-to-air arena is a lot different than it was, say in Desert Storm. So shooting like 5 or 6 missiles in a career is significant, right? So just getting to do that over, say, 20 years or something like that is impressive at this day and age. But at the same time, like I think that's where we're at, is employing the weapons, doing what you effectively train to do, whether it's in a training or a combat environment. I think is still something that's different, because obviously when you hit the button in the plane and the Trons do their thing, but nothing really comes off the plane, is a little bit different, right? As opposed to, I know that like when you hit the pickle button and the plane does this because something just came off it, that's a different feeling, right? So, but I would say, probably shooting the gun, shooting missiles, all that stuff like that, I think is
doing the job, like actually seeing that all your training paid off, and that you're effective at the thing you've been training to do this whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely some good times. And, you know, doing what we do now, like, it's rewarding taking someone who's still has no idea what they're about to do.
Yeah.
And giving them some basics and ensuring that they're squared away and on the right path. Like, that's a lot of fun, a lot of very rewarding in that sense as well.
I would say, at least from my perspective, I'm not that far removed from being where the students were.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's what's interesting too, is, you know, once they leave us, the next 5-6 years, the amount that they grow in that 5 or 6 years is incredible. Right. Even to the point where you can come back and be an instructor. So I would say that from that perspective of, like, half my Air Force career has been flying, other half is maintenance. But for me, it's been the journey, right? Man, if I had a nickel for every hook check ride that I've had and so on and so forth, that just to get to where I am today, I would say that, like, that whole, not that hook and check rides and all that stuff is fun, but just the journey itself. Like, there's a couple stories here and there, but just, like I said, even looking back and watching myself grow for that sake.
You don't have that many nickels, by the way. It's not that extreme.
I say pilot training pilot training, we had 10 check rides, right? Which you think of just any...
That's a lot of check.
Yeah, that's
so 50 cents at the most if you hooked all of them, which I know we did. 49 cents.
Go give me a gumball. But, you know, I think partly that journey and that growth, and you're kind of joking about, like, roller coasters. This is a fun little tidbit. So as a kid, like, I hated turbulence. There was something internal to me that, like, you'd hit turbulence or, like, a slight drop that, like, in the pit of my stomach, it's like your body's like, we're dead. Yeah. It's over. And it was almost to the point where it was almost like somewhat debilitating. And I knew that. Like, I hated roller coasters as a kid. And before I went down this journey to become a fighter pilot, I'm like, because you're pulling G's, you're doing stuff, right? A little foray into taking aerobatic flights, but, like, I literally took the wife and went to Six Flags, and I rode roller coasters, no lie, all day till they bored me. I wanted to sit on the roller coaster and do this, right? To the point where, like, I am the master of my body, right? So when I'm in pod training, when we're doing spins, all this stuff, that it would just be like, oh, this is normal, right? But I would argue that I had to take a day at Six Flags to see if that was even possible. Which, spoiler, it worked out.
It worked out.
It worked out.
You know what's funny about that, though? You say that, and the first thing that comes to my mind is how I'm afraid of heights. But I can fly 45,000 feet and not even think about it. You know what I mean?
I'm also afraid of heights. You won't find me on a 12-foot ladder.
People,
Me too.
and people find they're like, you're afraid of heights, and I'm like, you'd be surprised.
They think you're joking.
Are actually afraid of heights in that way.
Daredevils.
Right. Which is also funny because I've strapped a parachute on my back to jump out of a plane. So, it's that thing. You know, maybe I am an adrenaline junkie, but I don't like heights. It's weird.
I think we try to normalize the chaos. We do dangerous things carefully.
Yeah, right.
It's like I'm being careful.
Our risk mitigation.
I would thought, and that's sometimes too. I don't usually like the word especially in aviation. I would just say it's not that it's dangerous because I'm
Everything.
Yeah.
I would say it's unforgiving, right? So when things go wrong, they unfortunately just usually go way wrong, right?
Right.
But like I said, there was a sign that's in an airport somewhere that says, caution, you're leaving the safety of aviation, right? Because it's like you're driving home or something, right?
Yeah.
It's leaving the airport. Like, caution, there's dangers out there, but you obviously just came from flying, which inherently is safer than driving. But that's why I said it's unforgiving. Dangerous?
Yeah,
Man.
that's it. It is unforgiving. Yeah, you're right. And so, yeah.
And that's where the staying engaged and focused on the things you can control on the ground mitigate the dangers of aviation. So, but
that's a pretty cool story about that. Because I mean, we were talking the other day about being able to do spins in aircraft and just being able to just sit there and be like.
But you know what's interesting is that, like, I started that day on the kiddie coasters. I'm not even, and to the point where, like, the wife is giggling and having a great time next to me, and I'm just like, I'm not having a good time. Like, this. And a part of it, I think, is like the control, right?
Yeah.
And I've noticed that too. Flying, when you're in control, when you're flying, it's a much of an experience than you're on the ride, right? That's a little bit different.
like driving too.
Yeah, to the point now where, like, you still won't catch you at a roller coaster. There's a little bit of PTSD in there. Like, you want to go Six Flags? No, I don't really want to.
Yeah, that's fun.
But I go to the mall and do right. Great.
But I would say that if you take the amount of reps I've had on roller coasters in my life compared to the amount of reps I've had in a plane, it's significant, right?
Yeah.
So, but if I was going to be a professional roller coaster rider, then maybe, but
Might be a little bit different for sure. I don't know. It's been fun. It's been.
oh yeah.
Well, that's all good. I tell you what, you guys are definitely living the legacy. Living the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen. So those that are still there are proud of you, and those who have gone, are more likely just as proud of you guys for taking the reins and just going out there and doing the job at the level of excellence and a commitment that you guys have, doing your job, defending your country, and kicking butt, taking names, and like really being, top fighter pilots. Like you guys out there representing, So that's great. I know the audience is probably really glad to be able to hear you guys' story, and realize that just like everybody else, just regular people out here, doing it. You guys are just doing excellent at what you're doing, and in the highest levels, and killing it. So, thank you guys for being on here and sharing your stories with everybody. Thanks for joining us, Legacy Flight Academy.
I just want to say thanks for everything LFA is doing. Legacy Flight Academy is definitely, at the top of the game right now. And, under your leadership, everything is really, really coming together in a way that, I think most of us just dreamed of seeing something like this in the community. So absolutely proud of what Legacy Flight Academy has done, continues to do, and your leadership and your team that you got working with you. Really excited to see where things go from here, but really a testament to your abilities and your leadership. So LFA is definitely doing big things. Proud to be a part of the podcast. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having me. Can't speak for Omni, but I'm sure he feels the same way.
I just added myself to I'm scared of roller coasters.
You're a public film.
Yeah, everyone's I could be a fighter pilot. I'm not scared of roller coasters.
I wear glasses and I'm scared of roller coasters. I'm good to go.
You too can be a fighter pilot.
You could be a fighter pilot.
Oh man, but yeah, man, definitely proud of what you guys are doing, man. So hashtag Raven Nation.
Yeah.
Well, that's all good. Well, that's it. Thanks for joining us. We're out. No live, grow the legacy.